Ruth, as I was thinking about this, I thought of I think it's an analogous situation where I thought maybe you could enlighten me and aid my decision making, but I was thinking about Federal Drive, right there at Kingston Pike. And that's perhaps a few thousand feet to the east of this particular parcel. And I think it is within a commercial zoning region presently, that corner at Kingston Pike and Federal right across from the Ingalls. When I moved here, that wasn't a Clayton Bank. That was an O'Charlie's restaurant. Yeah. And that is obviously on a parcel that fits all the right criteria for everything you've described about the O1 zone as a transitional area, because literally the homes in the neighborhood are sitting right there. Yet there was a commercial use of an almost identical parcel sitting just a few thousand feet down the road. And the land use plan that you've been citing and that I've read, I don't recall when it was generated. Do you recall the year?
10 years ago, 2001.
I'm going to assume that was generated after that O'Charlie's restaurant was already there.
I do not know. I can't recall when the O'Charlie's restaurant was built, but I believe you are correct. The land was actually zoned commercial and it was vacant before the O'Charlie's came. The O'Charlie's use was allowed as a special exception through the Board of Zoning Appeals. I think it was built around 1994, 95 in that time frame, if I remember correctly. And there was a great opposition from the neighborhood about that being a commercial use. However, the property was zoned commercial, so because it was already zoned as such, there was nothing that could be done to prevent the use being a commercial use. And it met the criteria for the special exception that was in place at that time.
Now, that having been the case, why did it even have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals in that situation?
It was the way the ordinance was written. That was the reason I think it was about in that time frame that it went through, because that was about the time frame when I was hired, and I was actually hired to make major modifications to the ordinance because of some of those wordings with the special exceptions, because the special exceptions implied that you had the authority to say yes or no, but the way the ordinance was written, if it met that criteria, you could not legally deny it, and it gave neighborhoods and residents a false sense of security with the way the ordinance was written. And so when I came to work here, that was one of the first things that I was asked to do, was to rewrite the commercial zoning district to clarify certain things so that there wasn't a false sense of security with regards to the protection your neighborhood had.
Okay, so again, to assist me, if you were redrawing the zoning lines today, would you be taking this O1 district right along much of the east side, the south side of Kingston Pike, abutting those neighborhoods?
Yes, and I would have extended it to Sugarwood. Actually, that was a point of discussion at was it the last planning? No, it would have been 2 planning commissions ago when the first choice automotive site plan was approved, because there was concerns that an automotive place was approved in front of the Derby Run subdivision, that would have been a more appropriate location for residential. However, the property was zoned commercial, and the applicant met all the minimum requirements, and it wasn't allowed use.
Thank you.
All right, we need to vote this up or down.
Well, I make a motion that we approve the zoning request subject to the owners combining it into a complying lot size, dissolving the lot lines.
Is there a second? Well, it dies for the lack of a second. Next item is ordinance 10-18, ordinance to amend the Farragut zoning ordinance, Chapter 4, Section 22, sidewalks and other pedestrian facilities to require sidewalks or walking trails on all commercial streets and to have internal connectivity.
Pedestrian and bicycle plan was adopted this past spring, and this ordinance before you is consistent with the goals outlined in that recently adopted plan. The, excuse me, Goal 3 of the pedestrian and bicycle plan states, promote pedestrian connectivity between commercial, office, and service uses so as to minimize inefficient and highly fuel-consumptive short trips related to the completion of service-oriented errands. And then the strategies listed under that goal that are applicable to the ordinance that's before you this evening is that pedestrian connection should be made from the parking lot of new developments or redevelopments to an existing pedestrian facility abutting the road on which the property fronts. Pedestrian connection should be made laterally between adjacent developments and require appropriate pedestrian facilities for all commercial and office entities, even if they do not front along a collector or arterial. The map that is the aerial photograph with the streets highlighted, those are our arterials and collectors in the town. And currently our requirements state that if a entity fronts on one of these roads that they would be required to construct a trail or a sidewalk. We do have some roads, however, that are not listed as an arterial or a collector, but it is still necessary for there to be some type of pedestrian connection. I'm going to refer to the Cheho Street that we just looked at in more detail. When the architect's office came in, that street coming from Linda Heights actually gets a fair amount of traffic, and it isn't the comfort level for a pedestrian to share the road with a automobile really isn't there. And as part of working with the architect, they provided a pedestrian connection. So this amendment just says that not only arterials or collectors, but basically all commercial-oriented streets would be required to have the pedestrian, like a sidewalk or a walking trail in the front. This next slide shows our pedestrian plan, our existing facilities map, showing where we have existing facilities. And if you were to walk on West End, for example, West Point Drive, you get a fair amount of traffic and your comfort level is not there just because of the commercial nature of the traffic. The other amendment that is included in this regards connectivity not only to adjoining developments but also to adjacent streets. This slide shows a connection between the Baymont and the Cracker Barrel. This was actually initiated by these two businesses that they felt it was to their advantage to have a pedestrian connection so that people did not have to get in their car or just cross over the grass or whatever. If you ever go to Cracker Barrel on a Friday evening or on any other evenings, you will see people using this fairly regularly from the hotel to access the Cracker Barrel for meals. But we have other examples of this in town. What this amendment does is clarify that this is a requirement. This next picture shows the sidewalk connection to the adjacent rights-of-way. This obviously is the Best Buy. And so that's if you are using the sidewalk or the walking trail, whichever it may be on the public road, you can safely access into the development without having to share the driveway with cars and other vehicles that are entering the premises. Here's another example. This is taken from the Nukes looking back out toward Parkside Drive. And so this ordinance amendment incorporates what we're already seeing. It just clarifies, so for consistency's sake, so that it is required. In all three of these cases of pictures, the developers did this when suggested, they agreed this is a really good idea. And in the case of the Cracker Barrel and Baymont, They did that on their own and just requested on us if we were okay with it. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of ordinance 10-18.
Any discussion?
I've ridden my bike along that section before, and it's a nice completion. It really helps out quite a bit. It's actually a lot of fun, and it's one of the more level places to ride, too, in that area.
I would like to make a motion to approve ordinance 1018
Second.
as written.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?